Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. The aim of this video again is to remind you and is to help you as you get ready for your paper 2 exam. Again, this poem is done at matric level in the South African school. Matrics will be writing their paper very soon, and basically that's the reason I am actually doing this video, and hopefully it helps. If you find this content helpful, please don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends as well as your neighbors and everyone who really need this information. Okay, now as you see on the screen, today we'll be doing this poem by Emily Dickinson titled The Shipwreck. Now, how do we start this? Now, since the poem is titled The Shipwreck, and also being aware of the content of what the poem is about, I want you to imagine a storm so fierce that only 4 souls reach the shore, while 40 sink beneath the waves. So basically, this poem by Emily Dickinson titled The Shipwreck isn't just a poem, but it's a haunting echo of survival, loss, as well as silence that follows tragedy, as this basically is reflected in the last stanza. So we are going to be delving into this poem. Now, as you know, that it was written around about the 1800. This poem basically captures the fragility of human life against the natures and stop these steps to actually break this poem down. Okay, so we'll look at, I will say something about the ship during the 1800s, as well as we'll engage with the poem, as well as also look at the summary, so that by the time we go through this poem, we're already aware of the content. And then we'll do the stanza analysis. Basically, let's call it line by line analysis, because that's exactly what we'll be doing today. And then we'll conclude this poem, and then what you will need to do then is to now go through the past question papers and look at how these questions are basically answered. I will try to address some of the questions as we analyze, as we usually do, just to help you to be able to respond to these questions. So I'll be giving you some tips basically along the way. Okay, now let's talk about the ships during the 1800. As you see here on the picture, that's basically how the ship used to look like. They were made from wood, unlike the steel and iron today. Also, these were not very advanced. Ships had linen sails, unlike steam engine today, and they also highly depended on the wind to direct them. Also, the ships were steered by paddle wheels, unlike, again, propellers today. And then no storm warning equipment, so they were not that sophisticated or advanced or technologically advanced. So these basically were a ship during the 1800s, and it is basically a ship like this one that is being talked about in this poem. So let's look at the poem. I'm going to read the poem, and then we're going to try now to look at this poem stanza by stanza, line by line. It reads, says, "Glee, the great storm is over. 4 have recovered the land. 40 gone down together into the boiling sand. Ring for the scant salvation. toll for the bonny souls, neighbor and friend and bridegroom spinning upon the shoals. How they will tell the shipwreck when the winter shakes the door, till the children ask, but the 40, did they come back no more? Then a silence suffuses the story, and a softness the teller's eye, and the children no further question, and only the waves reply. Okay, now let's look at basically the summary of this poem. Basically, there was a shipwreck at sea in which 40 people died, and we see this in the first stanza. And then we also learned that only 4 survived. Also, in the first stanza, the town celebrated their return, and then somewhere, I think in the third stanza, we talked about children asking questions about the 40 who did not return, and then which basically contrasts the joy of 4's survival with the sorrow of 40's loss. Now, if I were to look at, maybe summarize the first stanza before going into details, you will see that the opening word here is glee, which basically meaning to burst with joy. This is basically a raw relief. The storm has ended, and that's basically the reason. Now, if you look at line 1, glee with an exclamation mark, you would see glee means what? Rejoice, be happy. So glee here, you would see because of this word. So therefore, the mood of this stanza is what? Is a joyous mood. Is people are happy. That's basically what this calls the town. Be happy. Why be happy? Be happy because the storm is over. Again, you will see there's exclamation mark, which also goes in hand with glee, be happy, excitement, or this reveals what? Emotions or feelings. So glee with exclamation mark emphasizes excitement as well as a sudden emotional release. Be happy. The great storm is over. So this is about focusing on the bright side of the story, basically, as far as the first stanza is concerned. Now, obviously, the tone here is jubilant, is triumphant, is basically, this is the initial sense of survivor. Although only 4 have survived, but at least be happy, according to line 1. Now, the question might be, refer to line 1, briefly discuss what is the tone of the first line. So you will say, the tone of the first line is what? It's triumphant. Why it is triumphant? Because of what? Glee, meaning be happy, as well as the exclamation mark there, which suggests what? Excitement. Okay, so I believe that's basically how you would actually handle a question like that. Now, so that's basically was line 1, glee, be happy. Why? Because the great storm is over. Now, if you look at line 2, it basically again provides more information. Why should they rejoice? Why should they be excited? Besides the storm being over, also they have to be happy because of the 4 that survived. So again, focusing on the brighter side, be happy because 4 have survived. 4 have actually made it back to the land. So as you see here, Only 4 have survived. They've made it back to the land. This basically 4 here highlights few. Why? If you compare it with line 3, which suggests a number of people who have died. So rather than to be sad, rather be happy, focus on the brighter side. So that's what is saying here. So during this shipwreck, only 4 made it back to the land. Only 4 survived. So he calls the town, or he calls the people to celebrate, to be happy, to be excited. Okay. So again, you will see that the tone shifts slightly from joy to somber realism, as you see here, when loss is basically suggested. If you look at again line 3, if you combine line 2 and 3 together, 40 have gone down, 40 have died, 4 have recovered, survived. So therefore, line 1, be happy, be excited. So that's basically what we see in line 2. Now, also, if you look at line 3, line 3 says 40 gone down together, which basically emphasizes the magnitude of tragedy. Gone down is a euphemism for death, suggesting that these people have died. So basically, gone down here is more than a description. It softens death and also turning pain into poetry. But then also this is again contrasted with line 4 to get there. So if you look at line 3, 40 gone down together, so the tone there will be very sad, will be melancholic, will be mournful and grave. Why? Because of the realization of mass death. Again, as you see now here, the irony here is it says be happy because 4, but if you compare 40 and 4, you would see that there's basically a huge reason to actually cry. But again, these people, they choose to focus on the positive side of things, or on the brighter side of life. Okay, now if you look at line 4, which again contrasts with line 3, we said the poet uses, or the speaker uses, euphemism, says gone down together, which basically suggests that they've died, and we said that softens the impact, and that's basically. But also now, if you look at line 4, is a contrast, because the boiling sand actually reveals the truth. It reveals the chaos, the destruction, the violence of the sea, of nature's wrath. Okay, so it provides more details about how the victims died. They've gone down together into the boiling sand, so meaning that the victims are swallowed by the turbulent sea near the shore. Also here, boiling conveys violent waves and chaos. And then if you look at that's basically a metaphor there, which and as well as the personification. You see that the sea is also personified. The sea could be boiling with anger, you could say. Now, if you look at line 4, you see that there's basically a link there between line 4 and line 8, but we'll deal with that when we come there. So as you see, in this stanza, in these lines, there's a mixture of what? Joy versus sadness. Line 1, 2, is about rejoicing, joy. But if you look at 3 and 4, reveals the reality of the situation. 40 have died together into the boiling sand. That's basically a very a vivid picture and very sad picture, revealing as well as violent picture, revealing how these people actually died. Now let's look at line 5 to 8. It says, line 5 says, ring for the scant salvation. Again, the idea of what? Celebrating. Bells ring to celebrate few who survived. But also now, again, scant salvation also reveal again the reality of the situation. It says, but the scant salvation shows how little there is to celebrate. And then again, you have the alliteration there, scant salvation, which basically emphasizes that very few survived. If the question will say, refer to line 5, identify and explain a figure of speech found there or a poetic device found there, so you will say what? Alliteration, and then explain it. Scant salvation, that would be your S alliteration, which emphasizes that very few survived. Now, ring, this basically joy. It calls the community to respond. Also now, if you look at this line, ring for the scant salvation, then you have somehow an oxymoron there. Joy, ring, but sorrow. Why? Sorrow because very few people survive, so which again produces a mixed tone, highlighting both relief and grief. Okay, now let's look at line 6, toll for the bony souls. Now, church bells toll mournfully. Why? For the lost lives. Again, if you look at the language, there is bony souls. These are basically, this means lovely or beloved, because the people who died were known to them. So that's why this bell will actually toll. Why? Because the people who died were known to them. So basically we have a hyphen there which introduces a list as well as an explanation of these people who were said, as we see them in line 7. These were neighbor, these and friend and bridegroom. Okay. Now, as you see, there is end, the repetition of end, which shows that the list actually continues and continues. Okay. So, if now we deal with line 7, like I said, the dead were not strangers. Why? Because these were neighbors, these were friends, these were also a bridegroom there, meaning that these were beloved or loved members of the community, again, which makes the tragedy to be personal, as well as the repetition of end, again, suggests collective loss. The tone here is intimate and sorrowful. If you look at line 6, again, gives more details about how these people died. Shows this is a place where a sea or lake or river is shallow. The drowned bodies are tossed about on the shallow rocks. Again, this shows helplessness. And then you have imagery there of spinning, which conveys both movement and chaos or violence. And then also you have personification there, because the sea toys cruelly with the dead. Now, the tone here is very disturbing and is very tragic, because it tells us how did these people die, and the manner in which these people died is very tragic. You'll see also here that there's a link here with line 4, like I suggested earlier on, spinning upon the shores, which highlights the fate of those who drowned. Again, it leaves one feeling shocked. Okay, now let's look at line 9 to 12. How they will tell the shipwreck when the winter shakes the door, till the children ask, but the 40, did they come back no more? Okay, if you look at these lines, the survivors of villages will recount the story of the disaster. They will remember the story of the disaster during the winter storms. People will remember and retell the tragedy. The celebration also, you see that in line 11 are soon muted when children start asking questions, especially during winter when bedtime stories are told. Now, if you look at poetic devices there, you see in line line 10, that winter has the ability to shake the door, which basically you see here that nature is giving human traits, which makes this to be a personification. And then again, you have symbolism there, because winter could actually symbolize hardship, death, as well as remembrance. And then the tone of these stanzas is basically melancholic as well as reflective as they look back, as well as this is again foreshadows. This is foreshadowing. Why? Because it shifts to a reflective tone, how memory basically preserve trauma. As much as they've gone through this tragedy, but they will actually remember this trauma. And then again, if you were asked about the tone, you would say, the tone is nostalgic as well as somber. Now, this follows this line. It follows line 9 to 12. It says, then, after the children have asked questions, says, then silence suffuses the story. Okay, so then a silence suffuses the story, and a softness the teller's eye, and the children no further question, and only the waves reply. So if you look into these lines, the last lines of this poem, you would see that this is the response. These lines are about the response that the children received when they asked these questions. They are only greeted back by silence. A heavy silence falls as the painful truth is felt, the realization that the 40 are gone and they are not coming back anymore. So if you look at this line, you'll see that you have S alliteration here, silence, suffuses, which basically softens the mood. The children questions leaves adults stunned into silence. Suffuses basically means it spreads through. This is the silence that is witnessed by children as they ask these questions. And then also this evokes the tenderness as well as empathy. And if you look at the tone here, could be that of compassion as well as sorrow, as these people are actually forced now to relive the trauma, to remember how these people died and how they made it back to the land. Now, if you look at line 15 to 16, it says, and the children no further question, and only the waves reply. You would see that the fact that children stop asking questions, this basically shows that they understand the gravity of death, and basically, therefore, they question no more, because they realize the seriousness of and the emotions of the fact that they are dead and they are not coming back. So the pause here